What up, everybody? Harrison here. Welcome to the Arabian Pleb. Today is the 28th of April, 2025. And how's everyone going? Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone had a good Anzac Day and had a good Easter the weekend before. I thought today I wanted to just go through the most recent election debate between Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton. These things are fucking boring as all fuck. I don't really give a rat's about the election and all that crap, and all these politicians are all a bunch of scumbag criminal fuckers. But anyway, I do find it interesting, and I do like to just call out their propaganda and just listen to what they're crapping on about. So I didn't watch the debate last night. It was on last night. So this is the fourth debate that the two leaders have had of the two biggest political parties in Australia. For those that don't know, if anyone's listening from overseas, the two major parties in Australia are the Liberals, which are effectively the Conservative Party for Australia, which is weird. It's kind of, they've flipped, flipped the term liberal on its head in terms of like an American context of the term liberal will mean the left-wing party, but in Australia it's actually our right-wing party. So we've got the Liberals as our like conservative, supposedly conservative right-wing party, and then Labor is our left-wing major party, supposedly. Anyway, so that aside, I'll just jump in. Like I said, didn't watch the debate last night, but I just thought I'd go through it today. Just found it on YouTube, the full debate. It goes for 2 hours. Definitely not going to go through the whole thing, but I'll just skip through to some things that I think are most important. So I suppose I'll just start like with their opening statements, and then we'll take it from there. So let's bloody well jump on over there, shall we? So here we go. So it starts off Peter Dutton's opening statement. Let's have a listen to this fucking scumbag.
Thank you for being here tonight. This election is all about who can best manage the Australian economy. And if we can manage the economy well, it means that we can bring inflation down. It means that we can help families with the cost of living crisis that this government's created. We live in the best country in the world, but we do know that...
Stop, pause it. Okay, so the inflation crisis that this government's created, fuck you. Your government, the Liberal coalition, also contributed to the inflation crisis that we're suffering right now. It was Scott Morrison, the previous Prime Minister, who was in power during the COVID era and the lockdown regime and the vaccine rollout regime. And during that period, our government printed a fuckload of money. And if anyone knows anything about economics, it's the increase in the money supply, the money and credit in circulation that then contributes to price inflation. So literal inflation is the expansion of the money supply to inflate, to expand like a balloon. If that that makes sense, right? And then price inflation, which is as measured by the CPI, which is just prices going up and down. That's what he's referring to when he talks about inflation. But if you think about it, like something going up and down, prices going up and down, that doesn't make sense to call that inflation, to inflate. That's prices going up and down. Inflation is the expansion of the money supply. Okay, so just belaboring the point, but that's just the fucking truth. So this dude's just lying straight off the bat. His government also contributed to this price inflation that we're all suffering under right now.
That many families are doing it tough. And as we've moved around the country, we've spoken to families literally in tears. They can't afford to put food on the table. They've stopped the registration renewal on their motor vehicle or on their house. They have had a tough 3 years under this government. And there are very few, if any, Australians that I've met over the course of the last 3 years who can say that they are better off under this Prime Minister's watch. We need to make sure that our country can be kept safe, and we need strong leadership in a very uncertain world to make sure that we can keep our country safe. And I believe very strongly that at this election, Australians will vote for change. There is a better way to manage our economy and to manage our national security.
What change? What fucking changed, Dutton? Like if we oust Albanese, who I also think is a fucking scumbag and a criminal piece of shit, but if we just vote him out and then vote you in, what changes that? There's no fucking change. That's just ridiculous. Just the how do I phrase it? Just like this duopoly, this two-party preferred system is such a fucking racket. Fuck's sake. Anyway, it makes me fucking annoyed. That's why I like to watch this shit, because I think that I'm able to create good content for all you lovely people out there to listen to me lose my fucking shit. All right, cool.
And that's exactly what I have on offer at this election.
Thanks, Mr Dutton. Mr Albanese, your opening statement, please.
Well, thanks, Mark, and thanks, Peter. Australians have a real choice this Saturday to continue building Australia's future or go back to the past. Labor has a real plan for cost of living support today, whilst building with investment for tomorrow. Tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer, strengthening Medicare, including...
I think that's classic that the Labor Party are now talking about tax cuts. That's a pretty big 180 as far as I'm aware. Labor's always been for that. They won't really come right out and say we want higher taxes, but in effect, that's what they're all usually advocating for, is higher taxes and increased government spending, which he still would be for increasing government spending, as he was about to say, like, fucking strengthening Medicare. But that's fascinating that he's now part of his platform is tax cuts. Yeah, interesting. And not saying that Liberal are any better, obviously. Like, Liberal are a bunch of fucking pieces of shit too, but they're normally the ones like banging their chest, going on about tax cuts, and Labor opposing it. So anyway, interesting.
Through our 1-800 Medicare line, making more things. Here in Australia, 20% cut in student debt and a 5% deposit for first homeowners.
Whoa. What did back that up again? What did he just say? 20% cut for student debt. Let me just go back a second. Let's just hear that again.
Building with investment for tomorrow. Tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer. Strengthening Medicare, including through our 1-800 Medicare line. Making more things. Here in Australia, 20% cut in student debt and a 5...
He just threw that in there, didn't he? So what is it? I wonder what he means by 20% cut for all student debt. I wonder what he means by that. Does he mean that so in Australia, the HEX debt system, the student debt that we have is this HEX debt, this HEX system. I should look up what HEX stands for, but I'm sure it's some sort of acronym. But anyway, basically, it's that's all student loans are. It's this HEX scheme where they borrow money and it's backed by the government. But so I wonder what he means by that. Does he mean that the government is? I don't know. I'm curious, but I have a sneaky suspicion that he's going to lump the taxpayers with that. Like, because if I'm very dubious on that. I feel like that means that taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill, and in many cases, taxpayers who chose not to go to university, who are now going to pay for other people's university. That's fucking bullshit. That's fucking terrible. Okay, let's keep listening.
5% deposit for first homeowners. We know that we live in very uncertain times, and that's why we need certainty. And during this campaign, we have put forward clear, decisive policies. The opposition have chopped and changed. Australians deserve certainty. What we will deliver is just that. We will trust in our people. We will value our Australian values, and we'll build Australia's future.
Thanks very much, gentlemen. You've both mentioned the magic phrase in your opening statements, the cost of living. It is the issue that is galvanising the nation at this election. So our first question tonight is on that issue. Australian families, we know, are doing it tough. They're under the pump. Our viewers constantly tell us that they're getting smashed at the supermarkets every week. What will you do from Sunday to make their lives easier? Mr Albanese, you first.
Well, we completely understand how tough it is for people out there. That's why we've already acted on cost of living, but we know there is more to do. That's why we'll deliver an increased tax cut, not just one, but 2 tax cuts in the next term. That's why we'll continue to support real wage growth. Real wages have grown 5 quarters in a row. We know that that is important as well. But we've also got...
If fuck these slimy scumbags, but so if real wages grow, but the price of everything all around you is growing even faster, then it's just a nothing burger. That's just fucking bullshit. So what does he mean? Like real wages growing relative to what? Are the real wages outpacing the price increases all around us? And let's be fucking real. The government has no control over wages going up. They can increase the minimum wage, but as I pointed out in a previous episode, that all that does is destroy jobs for people who can't provide the value of, at least the value of the minimum wage or more. So if the minimum wage, just not to go over the whole thing all over again, but I'll just try and quickly say, if the minimum wage in Australia is $24.10 per hour, if you as an employee can't provide at least $24.10 per hour worth of value, then you're not getting the fucking job. And the government has no say over that. And the government has no say over an employer, how much they choose to pay any of their employees, once you go above the minimum wage. It's just fucking bullshit. Fuck. Okay.
Got the plans for cheaper medicines, $25, we've brought the costs down. Energy bill relief, the cheaper childcare policy that is...
I love the energy bill relief propaganda. Oh, okay, so great. So by the government spending a bunch of money and printing a bunch of money and increasing the debt, they have drove up all the prices all around us, especially energy. And their solution to that is print more money and hand out free money, supposedly counterfeited money, to households to cover a small portion of their electricity bill. I wonder what perverse incentives and negative consequences are going to come from that. He's talking about what caused the problem in the first place. We're going to do more of that to solve the problem. Oh, printing money and increasing government spending caused the price inflation crisis that we're all suffering. I've got a great solution, says the government. I'm going to print more money and just hand it directly out to people. Great idea, mate. Good on you, Albo.
Has benefited families by $2,700. We will continue to address those cost of living measures while getting inflation down. Inflation had a 6 in front of it when we were elected. It's now at 2.4. Interest rates started to rise before we were elected. Now they've started to fall, and we know the impact that has.
The only thing that's going to, sorry, I just have to keep jumping in here, but the only thing that's actually going to solve this cost of living crisis is for interest rates to go way, way up, like way further higher than what they are right now. So the fact that he's going to try and brag about rates going down and then that's somehow also going to help with cost of living pressures. I mean, sure, I guess if you own a property, you have a big mortgage or something, you really want those interest rates to go down. But as I've also stated in a previous episode, what does interest rates going down actually mean? Like what signal does that send to the market and people? It sends the signal it sends is that, oh, this is a great time to borrow more money. And what does borrowing more money do? Create more inflation. You're adding to the expansion of the money and credit supply. It's so fucking dumb. I don't know, like, I don't think I'm a very intelligent person or anything, but just once someone explained all this stuff to me, just like how money works, monetary policy, fiscal policy, and, what money actually is, it just made so much sense. It just like clicked for me. So yeah, point being, I don't think I'm that smart. It's just like, I just don't think many people have like actually looked into economics and have ever been exposed to the Austrian economic school and theory by, which was really spearheaded by Ludwig von Mises and then refined by Murray and Rothbard. So if people aren't aware of the Austrian School of Economics, please do some due diligence and look into them. Read some books from Mises, Ludwig von Mises, and definitely read books from Murray and Rothbard. Maybe in another episode I'll go through all, some of those best Austrian economic thinkers. And then there's guys of the modern era like Peter Schiff and Robert Murphy, Bob Murphy, Tom Woods. There's great thinkers out there that can just explain this stuff very clearly and concisely. Anyway, let's keep going.
On the Australian people.
Mr Dutton, what will you offer to families in the way of cost of living relief from Sunday?
Well, Mark, we want to provide immediate relief to Australian families, and that's through a cut in the petrol tax by 25 cents a litre for petrol.
That's a great idea. Cut the fucking sales taxes. Cut that fuel excise tax. Like, what the fuck? I wonder how many people realise how big the fuel excise tax is. He's saying he'll cut it by 25 cents per litre. Fucking cut the whole thing. Get rid of it. It's ridiculous. It's as though they don't make enough money from all our income taxes and all these other taxes that they have, all these property taxes. Cut the fuel excise tax. That's one of the biggest things, or I don't know if it's one of the biggest things, but it's definitely a contributing factor to the price of food going up so much is because of transport costs. The fact that all our supplies, in order for them to get on the shelves in the supermarkets, they have to be transported by trucks over long, long distances. So if you've got a fuel excise tax, I wonder how much it is. I got to look it up. I'm going to have to look it up. Just fucking chill. One second. Right. Okay. So, all right. I spelled excess wrong. Excise. Of course I did. Okay. So this is just an AI overview. I don't know, but this is just the quickest first thing that I found. But it's saying that the fuel excise tax, the current rate is 50.8 cents per litre. So what are we paying right now? I think on average it's about $2 a litre right now for premium 95 to 98 octane petrol in Australia. So if, it's right there, you'd bring it down to $1.50. Just cut that fucking tax. Like, fuck you greedy cunts. Oh, God. My dad is going to be really upset with me swearing so much, but God damn it, it seems very appropriate. Seems very, very appropriate right now. All right, let's get back into it with Dutton.
And diesel, and that means for families, it means for pensioners and for university students, for tradies, right across the economy, downward pressure on a very important cost that people have to face up to each week. It will save about $14 every time you fill up your tank. That's the immediate assistance. Secondly, $1,200 back by way of a tax rebate. That will help people deal with Labor's cost of living crisis. But the Prime Minister promises...
These bastards are such scumbags. Maybe I need another word. I keep calling them scumbags. They're such dishonest actors. How he keeps saying Labor's this, Labor's that. You're part of it too. It was Scott Morrison that kicked off the most recent worst part of this inflation crisis. I just have to, I don't know, sorry, got to jump in there and keep calling him out. Who was saying it the other day? Oh, it was Dale. It was my good friend Dale from the Waking World podcast with Tobias Nuttall, where he was saying so they have a few different segments of their podcast. There's the Waking World podcast, Waking World podcast, Waking World podcast, not Wanking World, Waking World podcast. He was saying, Dale was saying that politicians shouldn't be allowed, like when they're campaigning, they should not be allowed to just slander the other side as part of their campaign. That should just be immediately, I don't know, like outlawed or just totally disregarded. They just should not be allowed to do that. They should just be giving us their policy platform. What is it that you're actually planning to do? What are your policies? And just list them out. And that's all they should be allowed to do while they're campaigning and debating, as a matter of fact. Maybe there's like a little bit of wiggle room where they can actually call out, like if it's like a really, really bad policy and it actually is truthful, then okay, fine. But then go into detail about what's so bad about that policy, why is it so destructive, and what policy you're going to put forward that is a much better idea. So anyway, Dale had a great point there, I thought. Just tell us what you're actually going to do and what's your policy platform, you piece of poo. Hee hee.
A Band-Aid on a bullet wound. The damage that's been done over the last 3 years is significant. We've had the biggest drop in living standards compared to any other developed country in the world. Interest rates started to drop in other countries before they dropped here, and they've only dropped by 0.25 of 1% after having risen on 12 occasions. So we provide that immediate relief, and then our longer-term plan.
Talking about dropping interest rates and how good of an idea it is. What led to the goddamn problem in the first place? Have a look at a chart of interest rates and you tell me what the correlation is there. It's pretty damn obvious. You drop interest rates, you encourage people to borrow more money, you encourage the government to borrow more money, and then you get this really bad inflation crisis. And you're talking about part of the solution to the inflation crisis is dropping interest rates. Dickhead. He does look like a bit of a dick too, doesn't he? He's got a real penis head going on.
Plan is to fix up the energy crisis, because that's what's driven up the cost of food by 30%. It's driven up the cost of everything across the economy, and that has to be the real, I think, when you think about it, and it is emotional when you think about what families are going through, but that long-term relief is actually going to turn around Labor's very bad position.
All right, I've been lenient. Mr Dutton, Mr Albanese, the question was about families getting smashed at the supermarket. We heard all your policies and we've heard them, and now they're out there on the table. What is going to help families at the supermarket from Sunday?
What's going to help is a mandated code of conduct that we brought into supermarkets. Previously, the former government just had a voluntary code that was abused. People know that when they go to the supermarket and they see the price of a good reduced or put up by $1 and then reduced by 50 cents, and they pretend that that's a price cut, people know that supermarkets are just having a lend.
So what will you do about it?
Well, that's why we've got the code of conduct with real penalties in there as well as stopping price gouging. But if I can take up Peter's points briefly, the measures that Peter...
What's the price gouging that he's referring to? What is it? I hear a lot of people saying that supermarkets are price gouging. And look, I'm no defender of whatever, like massive corporations and whatever, but if you're going to print a fuckload of money and increase the debt by a shitload, businesses have to respond, be it small businesses or massive businesses. They're not just, people aren't in the world of business to just be a charity. And if they're like losing money, or if it's no longer profitable for them to do a certain thing in business, then they're just going to stop doing it. So if you make it if you make it not profitable to be able to sell food or sell certain types of food, then they'll just stop selling it. Like, it's pretty fucking simple. So what's the price gouging, Albo? Like, I wonder what it is. I even hear like good friends of mine like go on about like supermarkets and their price gouging, but they're like leaving out the fact that the government just printed a fuckload of money, or allowed the big banks to print a fuckload of money through the government's interest rate policy that led to the price inflation of everything going up and businesses having to respond to that. Like, it's just ridiculous. And it's such a scapegoat tactic to just blame supermarkets and their price gouging. I mean, like for me, so I work for my father's small business in the aged care sector. We supply aged care goods, right? And on the weekends, because I'm trying to make as much money as I possibly can and trying to get a house built, I'm just toiling away doing whatever I can. So I'm also mowing people's lawns and doing gardening and things like this, right? Well, over the last couple of years, I've had to up my wages, up my hourly rate, because I could no longer do it for $25, $30 an hour. It now has to be $40, $50 an hour because just of the prices all around me going up. But like, are you going to accuse me of price gouging? Well, I suppose you probably could, but you're going to be pretty hard pressed to find someone to work for $25, $30 an hour doing what I'm doing, mowing lawns and working for yourself and covering all the costs yourself of maintenance of your equipment and fuel to run the equipment and getting from place to place. That's just the reality of it. I'd prefer it go the other way. I wish that the dollar was getting stronger and stronger and we lived in a deflationary economy and that my prices could come down and relative to everything else all around me, because the price of everything else all around me is going down even faster, then it's still profitable for me to do what I'm doing and to bring my prices down. But that's just not what it is. That used to be what it is, say in the early industrial revolution and, so the late 19th century, early 20th century. If you spoke to anybody back then, like grandparents in those days, they'll talk about how the price of everything all around them was rapidly dropping. But you talk to grandparents, our grandparents of today, of 2025, and they'll tell you that throughout their life, prices always went up and up and up, and that's all we've ever known. But that's not always been the case. That's not just a scientific law or something that prices just always going up and up and up. No, that's just a result of monetary policy of the people in power. Yeah.
Is putting forward are all temporary. They disappear in a year's time. The difference between that and what we're putting forward is that ours are permanent. Permanent tax cuts. Putting that $1,000 instant tax deduction will make a difference permanently. The real wage increases that have been delivered, that Peter's...
I think I'm pausing too often, but I just fucking can't help myself. Like when he says like these tax cuts are permanent, yeah, until you get voted out and then a new government comes in and then they'll do whatever they think is that they want to do. Then whatever they'll do is like, oh, now we're permanently going to abolish your previous permanent policies. It's fucking dumb.
Industrial relations policy would undermine taking away same job, same pay. They want to get rid of taking away work from home. We know that that's the case. Okay. So we need permanent change that makes a real difference to the living standards of Australians.
All right, but some of the change you're proposing isn't permanent either. The household energy rebate will disappear in 6 months. Mr Dutton, when that was introduced, you first called it a Ponzi scheme because it's taxpayers subsidising taxpayers. You now support the extension for 6 months. You did that just before the election. Your fuel excise cut that you talked about is taxpayers supporting taxpayers. It's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, it's a taxpayer-funded shopper docket.
We'll make a couple of points. I mean, firstly, the Prime Minister looked the Australian people in the eye before the last election and on 97 occasions said that power prices would come down by $275.
We're talking about petrol.
They've gone up by $1,300. Now, what we've said, as we said over the course of COVID, and if you look at the way in which the Liberal Party, the coalition, always manages money and the economy more efficiently than Labor, what we did during COVID was say, OK, we're going to introduce JobKeeper, JobSeeker changes. We help businesses survive and stay open. We help people keep their jobs.
Petrol.
Well, the point I make, though, Mark, is that when...
Hang on. Okay. The Liberal Party manage money so fucking well, do they? You got such a great track record, do you, Peter Dutton? I'm now determined to see how much money the Liberal Party spent during COVID.
When we made those changes...
Let me just try and... Rightio then. So I found some charts. You make of it what you will. But, okay, so this is Australian taxation revenue. And it's saying for 23-24, we're at 800 billion, I guess, is what it's saying there. And there's 2019, 2020, 2021. I suppose that's the, and also, so let's just say, like, for argument's sake, from 21 back to 2014-ish or whatever's, showing on this chart, that's all the coalition, that's all the Liberal Party while they were in power. Okay, and let's go to, so then here's a chart of Australian government net debt. And as you can see, I wish I could go back further, but I have to have an account. So, and I'm not going to do that because I don't want to pay any money. So this is while the coalition was in power. this is the national debt increasing. And so it's saying so just for example, like here, so 338K, and it's in, so 338,000 Australian million dollars, $338,000 million. So I guess that's $338 billion. That makes sense. Yeah. So look at this massive jump since COVID, during COVID. Sorry, look at that. Went from $430 billion at the start of 2020, and at its peak, it peaked out at $626 billion in debt, our national debt. So what Peter Dutton's saying is just fucking bullshit, that the coalition is just so good at managing the national account. It's just fucking crap. Such a liar. Can't stand it. Hate liars. Oh, and I should say too that the fact that the government's going into debt is evidence of the government spending more money than they are collecting in tax revenues. That's the only way that can happen. The way the government gets into debt is they're spending far more money than they're actually collecting in taxes. So fucking great at managing the national account, Peter Dutton. Fuckwit. Fucking loser. Let's get back over to this stupid debate.
We implemented those plans during the course of COVID. Those payments aren't still being made today. They were there to address the needs in the economy at the time. And our argument is that, yes, it'll take us time to clean up Labor's mess, but in the interim, that immediate support, that 25 cent...
How's it Labor's fucking mess? How's it Labor's fucking mess? I'm sorry if you just admitted to those fucking relief payments during COVID and you increased the national debt by that fucking much. How is it Labor's fucking mess? Where's the debt thing? How is that Labor's mess? I mean, you fucking tell me. I know Labor's guilty of spending more than they collect in taxes as well, and if I could go back further on this chart, I'm sure I could fucking prove it. But that's not Labor. That was you. That was your government, Peter Dutton. Fuck you. Oh my God. It's incredible. Christ almighty. I think he's a fuckwit, and as Dale would say, in a Jesus way. In a very Jesus-loving way. Peter Dutton's a fucking piece of shit lying scumbag.
A litre cut in petrol, that can be provided to help people with the bills that they're facing now, and also the $1,200. Now, our policy in relation to energy is to bring Australian gas back into the market so that we can increase supply. It brings the cost of gas down by 24%, which actually brings down the cost of groceries and construction costs, etc.
We will get on to energy, I promise you. Yeah. Mr Albanese, $6 billion on this petrol excise cut. Is that money well spent? Won't people like cheaper petrol?
Let's be very clear. I mean, that is something...
Okay, so just the way they phrase that, it's going to cost the taxpayers $6 billion to do a fuel excise tax cut. That's only true if the government doesn't also cut spending to pair with the loss in revenue from the fuel excise tax. So that's how you could save the taxpayers' money, is by spending less. Stop spending so much money. Like, it's criminal how they phrase that. This moderator is meant to be neutral and meant to be holding these people supposedly account, holding these two candidates to account. That's bullshit. Just the way he phrased that. Costing the taxpayers $6 billion to cut taxes. Have you heard anything so fucking ludicrous in your life? Probably. There's a lot of propaganda out there. But oh my God, dude. No, it's not going to cost the taxpayers any money to cut our taxes, providing you also cut spending. Stop spending so much money and you won't be going so far into debt. And that's the other thing too, is that the government going into debt represents the need for future taxation, the need to tax your kids and your grandkids in the future. How about just stop spending?
that Scott Morrison did before the 2022 election, and then it disappeared. It's the same policy being put forward
Your
here.
household rebate disappears before it does.
But their income tax cuts that we have put legislated, they're going to actually increase the income taxes of all 14 million Australians, as well as oppose other measures such as the student debt cut of 20%, the free TAFE, that's made a difference as well, cheaper childcare they've been critical of. Every single one of the cost of living measures has been opposed by the coalition, and we know that people are doing it tough, but we also know this, and your viewers know, that we're living through the biggest inflation global issue since the 1980s and the biggest energy crisis since the 1970s. Now, that's something we've had to deal with. We've dealt with it in a mature way, getting that inflation down.
That's really interesting that Albo brings up the inflation crisis of the 1980s and the fuel price crisis, the fuel crisis of the 1970s. I wonder what was connected to that. I wonder if going off the gold standard in 1971 had anything to do with that. And it wasn't the inflation crisis of the 1980s. It was really the inflation crisis of the 1970s. All the money printing that was unleashed after going off the gold standard that caused the price of fuel to rapidly increase and go up to over $100 a barrel, $120 a barrel. And then the need to jack interest rates up in the 1980s, in the early 1980s, to get things under control. And oh, by the way, what did it take? How high did interest rates have to go in order to get price inflation under control? Interest rates went to 20% and even higher in many cases.
Down whilst providing cost of living relief, because we know that people are doing it tough.
Okay, well, let's move on. Our second question tonight is on housing, a big issue. Mr Albanese, you recently bought a $4.3 million beachside house. Mr Dutton, we know that you've had $30 million in properties over your life. I think we can both all agree that housing's not an issue for you, but for a lot of Australians it really is. What does the Australian dream?
I am glad that the moderator pointed that out because that's absurd. I mean, it's not absurd in the sense that everybody knows that politicians enrich themselves. So, yeah, of course these guys are multimillionaires and have shitloads of property, but isn't it absurd that they try to claim that they're public servants? Like, it's just disgusting how stupid they think we all are and how they just like insult our intelligence. It's fucking absurd. So good on the moderator at least for pointing that out. Now let's hear the bullshit that they're about to spill.
Look like today for an average Australian in the property market, Mr Dutton?
Well, Mark, it looks like a nightmare, and it's a nightmare because rents have gone up by almost 20%, and this Prime Minister has brought in 1 million people over the course of the last 2 years through the migration program. That is a 70% increase on any 2-year period in our country's history. So when you bring 1 million people in, they want a house for their kids and their family, fair enough. But what we've seen is Australians being displaced from home ownership, and our young Australians now, saving harder than ever, paying more rent than ever, they're locked out of the market. So what we've said is that we want to work with councils to bring 500,000 blocks of land online through a $5 billion scheme. For first home buyers, a $650,000 mortgage or up to that amount. You can deduct the interest off your taxable income, which will give you about $1,000 a month, which will help you with your application to the bank, but also it will help you meet the monthly repayments. We're going to put a 2-year ban in place for foreigners from competing against young Australians in the housing market, and we're going to cut migration by 25%.
And we will talk about migration,
Okay.
Mr Dutton.
I got to say, the fucking music that they keep bringing in as they're basically signaling to whoever's answering the question to wrap it up, buddy, wrap it up, mate. You've only got 14 seconds to answer this question. You go 1 second over and we're bringing this massive crescendo to a fucking halt and shut the fuck up. It's just infuriating. That's why these type of debates are just dying. Like, this is just the stupidest form of like this, the dumbest way to host a debate, especially on something so consequential as like who's going to be running the fucking country and policy decisions. But yeah, so I mean, I'll probably wrap this video up soon. Look, look at this. I'm only 14 minutes and 36 seconds into this 2+ hour debate, and it's just so fucking infuriating. But I think I'm glad that like that was the main things that I wanted to hit on anyway, was just like the economic questions, the inflation questions, and the housing. You know, I'll do a little bit more on the housing, but yeah, I made a video on Australian housing last week or the week before, can't remember. But yeah, go check that out. But I was saying the two biggest problems, the two biggest contributing factors to the housing crisis in Australia is obviously monetary policy, fiscal policy, so the economic side and the monetary policy side, and also, God damn it, what was the fucking other thing? Shit. I just totally out of mind blank. Oh yeah, I remembered. So monetary policy and zoning laws, right? And the council regulations and just restricting development basically. But the third thing, which I didn't point out, which is absolutely true and a major contributing factor, and which this is something that Peter Dutton is correctly pointing to, is immigration. Now I don't know like the numbers on immigration. I would never really take what Peter Dutton says at face value. He's saying like whatever it was, more than 1 million over the last 2 years, and that's 70% of a 70% increase from any other previous 2 years. That may be true. I'm not too sure. Definitely don't take his word on it. Go look into it yourself. But yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you can just logically understand, if you just think about it logically, is if you flood more people into the country and also while continuing to restrict the ability to build more houses, then that's going to drive the price of housing up. It's pretty fucking simple. So definitely. So immigration, government restricting development, and monetary policy are the three big factors contributing to the housing crisis. So if the government could just fucking fix all that, and I don't understand why it would cost $6 billion to fucking bring online more development. Like, no, how about just fucking allow private property owners to do what they want with their own goddamn property? If they want to subdivide it and, within reason, obviously, like you can't go building a big, massive fucking penis on your property and I don't know, just like doing dumb shit like that. Like, okay, fine. But the idea that like a farmer can't subdivide his 100 acres into a bunch of residential lots and sell it off and then allow people to build residential housing on that is just ludicrous. Like that's just fucking criminal. So let's listen a little bit more and then I'll probably wrap it up.
Dutton. So, Mr. Albanese, what does the Australian dream look like to you for average Australians?
Well, Australians know that this is an issue for them because it has got tougher to buy your own home. But they know it hasn't happened over the last couple of years. We've had a decade or even more of neglect. And the question isn't, do you identify a problem? It's, can you work towards a solution? And that's what my government has done. A 5% deposit for first home buyers will make an enormous difference, so that instead of never getting to that 20% figure, always paying off someone else's mortgage, people will be able to get into their first home and pay off their own mortgage. But the key as well is supply. And that's why our measures, whether it be increased private rentals through our incentives for build-to-rent programs, our first home buyers scheme, or whether it be the increased support for social housing, we are concentrating on supply, not just demand, because we know that's the key going forward.
Mr. Dutton, you mentioned migration in there about housing, and I know I've heard you say many times on the campaign trail thus far that the number of people coming into Australia is putting pressure on the real estate market or the property market. Don't we need skilled migrants? Aren't we screaming out for skilled migrants to build the sort of houses you're talking about?
Well, Mark, of course we do, and we've been, as a country, the net beneficiary of a great migration program. But it needs to be done in a balanced and measured way. This government hasn't had control of our borders. They've released people from immigration detention who have gone on to commit very serious crimes against Australians. Every aspect of the migration program has been mismanaged by this government. And if you bring in 1 million people over 2 years, over a 5-year period, it'll be about 2 million people, a population bigger than the size of Adelaide. And yet money's been pulled out of infrastructure. The government's signature housing policy hasn't built one home.
I mean, that's the thing too, right? It's like Australia's a massive country. Like, it is a huge landmass if you really look at it. I know that not all of it is inhabitable. You know, like, it's mostly just the coastlines. You know, the middle of Australia is just fucking barren desert essentially. I don't know. I've never traveled around Australia extensively, so I don't really know. But that's the rough idea that I have. But yeah. But even still, even along the coastlines, even just where I live, it's like, oh my god, fucking. We're not overpopulated by any sense. Like, Australia has something like 26 million people living here. So I don't know, it's not even though that we couldn't handle more immigrants in the country. But we can't handle more immigrants in the country if you're going to continue to restrict housing development. Like, that's really the point. Allow people to build more houses, and this idea that we need immigrants to build houses, that's bullshit too. That's absolute crap. Aussies can build houses. It's not fucking rocket science. We can build houses. Just allow us to build the goddamn houses.
And the fact is that young Australians know this. Young Australians are putting off having children under this government because they can't afford a mortgage and a family at the same time. Right. And for many families otherwise, parents and grandparents, they're staying in the workforce for longer because they're either having to help their kids with a deposit or to make the repayments.
Yeah,
and
okay.
that's the crisis that the Prime Minister's created. And that's why we have to cut migration, to focus on the skilled migration, yes, but to make sure that Australians can get into housing.
Mr Albanese?
Well, the truth is that the migration rates have fallen by 31% in the last year. And after COVID, of course, there was going to be more people coming in short term. The government is addressing that by lowering migration at the same time as we're building housing. There have been 400,000 homes completed since we came to office. Our Housing Australia Future Fund...
Not one, he said, under your
Our Housing Australia Future Fund, which they held up, together the Coalition and the Greens, that's now in operation, 28,000 homes, either under construction...
But not one completed.
Either under construction or in planning. Well, one of the schemes, the Help to Buy scheme, was passed in the Parliament last December. Now, you're having a lend to oppose all of those measures and then say, why haven't the homes been built? The former government didn't even have a housing minister for half the time they were in office and invested a total...
Why do we need a fucking housing minister? What the fuck is that bullshit? Why do we need to create new positions just in order to do the same thing that Aussies have been doing for 250 years? What are you talking about, Albo? God.
$5 billion. We've got a $43 billion Homes for Australia plan. We've lifted rental assistance by 45%, but we've done something else as well. Okay. We are training more tradies to work on those homes by giving a $10,000 apprenticeship support program to encourage young people and people retraining to go into construction.
Okay. Mr Albanese, you've said...
All right, I'm going to just skip ahead and see if there's anything else worth commenting on. Let's just have a quick look. Okay, this is pretty funny.
Okay, let's go to this one. Here is a dozen eggs. Mr Dutton, do you know how much they cost?
About $4.20.
No, you might get half a dozen.
Mr Albanese.
$7 if you can find them, because it's hard to find them at the moment.
Yeah, you're looking at, I reckon you're looking at 8+. No?
Yeah, there you go. It's the Sunny Queen 12 eggs from Woolies. They're $8.80 from Coles. They're slightly cheaper at about $8.50. Yeah, that's... I think you maybe
Own
Mr
brand.
Albanese got the advantage.
He really does the shopping.
And I've got to buy a dozen at a time instead of a half a dozen, which is what we do.
That was fucking hilarious. How out of touch. I mean, at least give Albo a tiny bit of credit. He was a bit closer with $7. And how dirty of a fucking tactic or whatever. Like how dirty was the moderator there being like, oh, I think they're about $8, a little bit more. Like, dude, clearly you have seen that graph, that the price of them before this went to air on live television. Fucking hell, Jesus. But yeah, Dutton clearly come off worse after that little exchange there. He was way off. So basically, the entire debate was basically all about cost of living, really. A little bit about energy policy, talking about renewable energy and nuclear energy and fossil fuels. But the vast majority of the debate went for about an hour, was on cost of living, which I find pretty amazing and pretty obvious that that's what most people are going to care about. And, while they kind of sort of scratch around the edges about what to do about it and what their policies are going to be to attack it, then they're never really getting at the heart of the issue, which is monetary policy, which is interest rate policy. And I know people will cry all day. People will be yelling at me in the comments, I'm sure, about how, if anyone comments, please comment. Please leave a comment and hit the like button. But yeah, they'll be going on about all these other things that they think are more important. But really, that's what I was going to say, is that people will be yelling at me saying, oh, it's the RBA, the Reserve Bank of Australia, who sets interest rate policy and the government has nothing to do with that. And I would say to those people, fucking bullshit. That is absolutely bullshit. The Prime Minister of the country appoints who runs the RBA. Oh, well, sorry. No, the board members do appoint him, but the Prime Minister absolutely has say over what the... sorry. So back it up. Sorry. The board members of the RBA appoint who's going to be the head of the RBA, but the Prime Minister absolutely has sway over who's in the RBA and who's on the RBA board. Like, don't give me that crap. That's bullshit. And the government can at any moment just decide what the RBA is, what the makeup of the RBA is and how it's going to be run. And they absolutely can change how the RBA does business and how it sets interest rate policy. So, the RBA hasn't always been a part of our society and how our government runs and how central banking and interest rate policy is done. That's just not true. Like, it's through the power of the government that the RBA even exists in the first place. So that's just that. But so that's the heart of the issue, is monetary policy and the fact that we have these fiat currencies that governments can just fucking will into existence, willy-nilly. But okay, so that's annoying that they don't actually get at that. Now, I've just skipped a little bit ahead on the debate thingamajig, but let's just go. So they just show, so they had in an audience of about 60 people, and they're all voting at who they think did better in the debate as the debate was proceeding. So we'll just have a quick look at some of these results and what these 60 audience members what they thought.
His vision for the future. And I think when you're trying to share facts and figures, it's really important to share that story, and he did that.
The clock has stopped. I'm going to cut you off there because we want to get to the reveal, the first of our results. It's what everyone's been wanting to hear at home. Cost of living was the first subject that Mark Riley went to and asked them. It was a big win for the Prime Minister. Have a look at this now. 65% of our voters siding with Anthony Albanese. Dutton received 16%. There's the interesting part. 19% of voters remain undecided. Housing, let's get straight to it. Much closer. Anthony Albanese received 35% of the votes. Peter Dutton, 30%. 35% of the voters remain undecided. Two very interesting results coming out there. Mon, let's go back up to you now. You've been speaking to the people in your room. Why did they vote those ways? Let's go.
Yeah, okay. I wonder if there was any other votes. Nah, so that's pretty much it. So, yeah, sorry to put you all through that, but I just thought it'd be good for me for content creation. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to do. You can all go get stuffed if you don't like it. But no, love you all. Please like and comment. Please like and comment on my videos. I'd be much appreciated. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. But that's all. Thanks very much for anyone who tuned in. Catch us next time. Peace out.